85% of retail traders fail in the long run, and most don't even know why. Not because of markets, not because of bad indicators, but because of the hidden trap inside them. Your instincts, your habits, your tiny, repeated impulses that masquerade as strategy. Traders call it intuition. The markets call it error compounding. James, 32, a part-time trader, had a small but promising account. He followed a strategy he had backtested meticulously. Risk per trade was calculated. Stops tight, targets realistic. The setup was textbook perfect. Yet on Monday morning, as he opened his platform, his heart sank. The first trade went against him. He hesitated, then tried to force a reversal. Then another entry. His emotional state escalated with every tick against him. Fear transformed into impatience. Impatience morphed into anger. By mid-morning, he had triggered 3 automatic stop-outs and entered a revenge trade, doubling his position. By lunchtime, 3 weeks of careful gains evaporated. He stared at the screen, jaw tight, hands shaking, knowing he had done it again. Not because the market had cheated him, but because he had surrendered to the automatic fear loops his brain ran without conscious approval. Across town, Sarah, 28, sat at her desk in a cramped apartment. She had been trading part-time for 2 years, following setups refined from online courses and backtests. On Thursday, a breakout appeared that perfectly matched her plan. She had prepared for the entry, calculated her risk, set her stop and target. But the moment the price hit her trigger, her hands trembled. A voice inside whispered, "What if it reverses immediately? What if you're missing the bigger move?" Fear wrapped around her mind like a vice. She closed half her position early, locking in a small gain. The other half she held, waiting for the breakout that didn't happen. Her profits evaporated. She walked away frustrated, stomach tight, heart racing. She told friends the market was unpredictable. She told herself she needed better indicators. Deep down, she knew the truth. Her fear had hijacked her rational plan. Here's the part no trader understands. The market doesn't punish intelligence. It punishes behavior. Your strategy is irrelevant if your mind overrides it. Your edge is invisible if your biological reflexes dominate decision-making. Humans are wired to avoid immediate pain, prefer certainty, and protect themselves from perceived threats. Markets exploit none of this. They simply respond to price action. The mismatch between human biology and market reality is silent, yet deadly. James's story continued that week. After his account hemorrhage, he promised himself he would be disciplined. On Friday, another signal appeared. Textbook setup, risk calculated, confidence rebuilt. But as soon as the trade filled, he felt the familiar chest tightening, stomach sinking sensation, tiny but irresistible urge to exit prematurely. He tried to suppress it, telling himself, "Stay calm. The plan is solid." Yet suppression never works in a biological system. Reflex won over reason. He closed the trade early, barely covering his fees. By the end of the week, his account reflected small wins and large frustration. He blamed the market, blamed the setup, even blamed his timing of life events. The deeper truth? He was trading against himself. Sarah's week mirrored this pattern. Each day she prepared meticulously, plotted her setups, rehearsed her entries, and watched her charts like a hawk. But tiny, almost invisible impulses undermined every decision. Micro movements of the mouse, half-hearted clicks, hesitation at the final confirmation button, all small, almost negligible actions that cumulatively destroyed consistency. She was trapped in the loop. Plan, hesitation, partial execution, regret. The market did not punish her for her skill or her lack of knowledge. It punished her for her internal inconsistency, her fear-driven impulses. Here's the part no trader understands. Insight alone doesn't solve this. James and Sarah could analyze every mistake, watch every chart replay, and still repeat the cycle, because the failure was neurological. Stress hormones narrow attention. The brain prefers immediate certainty over long-term gain. Fear activates limbic circuits that override prefrontal logic. Each tick against a position isn't just a market event. It's a trigger for the body's survival response. And in these moments, knowledge, backtesting, and even experience fail to intervene. James had tried all the conventional remedies, mindfulness apps, journaling, checklists, alarms. Nothing changed the internal reflex that pushed him toward impulsive exits. He realized the rational mind and the reactive mind were not aligned. The rational mind calculated risk and opportunity. The reactive mind sought immediate relief from uncertainty. Sarah, too, experimented with multiple solutions, spreadsheets, written rules, multiple setups, limiting trades per week. But the moment fear appeared, her rules became paper tigers. She reduced her risk, but increased her emotional tension. She exited too early, held losers too long, repeated micro-errors that compounded silently. The market didn't care. AI signals she had read about online were vague, theoretical. They didn't intervene in real time. She lacked a mirror for her behavior. And here's the hidden flaw traders ignore. The market is impartial. It cannot punish or reward fear directly. But fear is a force multiplier for mistakes. 90% of errors in accounts like James's and Sarah's are not due to lack of strategy. They are due to the tiny, automatic decisions the brain makes under pressure. That is the gap between knowledge and action, between I know the plan and I execute the plan consistently. James's frustration had a subtle twist. On a particularly volatile morning, he executed a trade perfectly. Entry, stop, target, all followed. The market moved in his favor. But then, the tiniest hesitation crept in. 3 seconds, barely measurable. Yet that delay turned into a premature exit. A $250 gain turned into $25. The loss wasn't the money. It was the realization that biology and behavior had overruled reason again. Sarah, on the same day, made a slightly better execution. She entered, followed her plan, and watched the trade unfold. But fear was patient. It waited for subtle moments. She adjusted her stop-loss fractionally, thinking she was optimizing. She added a tiny position because the breakout felt right. Each micro-decision, almost invisible, was a fingerprint of the fear-driven mind. By session end, her profits were halved, stress amplified, and she wondered why, after all preparation, she still felt powerless. Here's the part no trader understands. The problem isn't strategy. The problem isn't intelligence. It's the invisible, repeated behavior that sabotages rationality. Awareness alone doesn't fix it. Journals, checklists, backtests, they can document failure, but cannot prevent it. Traders like James and Sarah are trapped in a loop that rewards the market's indifference and punishes human reflex. It is silent, invisible, brutally effective. And this is where AI enters as more than a tool, as a mirror. AI doesn't predict the market. It doesn't give magic signals. It tracks behavior, timing, hesitation, micro-actions with precision impossible for the human eye. Every tiny impulse, hesitation before hitting a button, repeated adjustments of stops, impulsive size changes, premature exits, is logged. Patterns emerge the trader cannot see. Fear-driven micro-actions are measured, tracked, revealed. Because now we can see the fracture line. Biology, environment, and habit collude to create fear-driven trading. Insight alone isn't enough. Micro-interventions, behavioral scaffolding, and context design are required. The path from automatic fear to deliberate action exists, but it is invisible to most traders. And that's where everything begins to flip. James and Sarah both discovered something crucial. Insight is meaningless without intervention. Awareness of patterns, hesitation, and impulses is the first step. But until those impulses are interrupted in real time, the cycle repeats. This is where AI becomes more than a mirror. It becomes a scaffold for behavior, a subtle coach that nudges the mind before mistakes crystallize. The first micro step is a behavioral trigger, a pause before every significant action. Physical, concrete. James now stands up before executing any trade. Inhale 4 counts, exhale 4 counts. Speak one affirmation out loud. This trade follows my plan. Sarah does the same, adding a small ritual of tapping her desk twice to anchor the pause. 5 seconds. Just 5. Biology tricks you into thinking it's trivial. But those 5 seconds interrupt the limbic replay, the automatic fear loop, and allow the rational prefrontal cortex to assert control. Every trade becomes a micro-practice in discipline. Second micro-step. Let AI act as your mirror, not your master. Both James and Sarah pick one behavioral KPI. James tracks premature exits of profitable trades. Sarah monitors stop-loss edits under stress. AI logs each action with timestamps, creating a map of unconscious behaviors. Once a week, they review. Which behavior repeated? What micro-adjustment prevents it next week? The answer rarely involves willpower. It involves context, environment, friction. AI exposes blind spots invisible to human awareness, making adjustment precise rather than vague. Third micro-step. Implement constraints to enforce discipline automatically. James introduces a mandatory 3-minute lockout after 3 consecutive losses. Sarah caps her maximum position size during volatile periods. These constraints are visible: dimmed screens, locked ticket entry, separate devices for high-risk actions. Friction trains behavior. Constraint beats impulse every time. The goal is not restriction, but freedom from reflexive error. Fourth micro-step. Embed external accountability. AI provides precise logs, but human eyes multiply compliance. James shares weekly KPI results with a trading mentor. Sarah discusses metrics with a peer accountability group. Social accountability transforms insight into identity. They start caring about their behavior patterns as much as P&L. Consistency becomes deliberate, not accidental. Fifth micro-step. Pre-commit a decision architecture for emotional extremes, excitement, and fear. Map exact actions before emotions arrive. James sets rules for euphoric periods. Reduce position size, double-check targets, run the pause ritual. For fearful periods, step away. Rerun checklist. Limit trades. Sarah scripts concrete actions to prevent micro-errors. Pre-commitment converts reactive impulses into rehearsed patterns. Rehearsal converts patterns into habit. Compare the fearful trader to the rational trader. The fearful trader reacts like a stove, immediate, reflexive, urgent. The rational trader treats stimulus like weather data, informative, not imperative. Fear seeks comfort now. Rationality accepts calculated discomfort for future compounding. Intelligence alone does not separate them. Choreography does. Habits, rituals, environmental scaffolds orchestrate the difference. AI reinforces this choreography. It detects deviations, nudges micro-pauses when thresholds are crossed, logs events for weekly review. Detect, nudge, review. That loop rewires habits over time. Example: AI identifies James increases trade size after less than 6 hours of sleep. Alert: sleep flag, confirm risk reduction. He must reduce size or skip the trade. Decision becomes explicit. Over time, nudges scaffold new habits. Pause becomes instinct. Behavior becomes predictable. Fear loops neutralized. Sarah experiences a similar intervention. AI detects rapid stop-loss adjustments during volatile news. Alert: volatility detected. Confirm adherence to plan. Sarah steps back, runs her 5-second ritual, makes deliberate choice. Previously, session would end in regret. Now, intervention converts a potentially destructive pattern into learning and control. The identity shift is cinematic, subtle, motivating. Future you is not perfect. You do not win every trade. You do not need to. Impulses tamed, entries calm, stops honored. Small wins accumulate. Catastrophic losses minimized. Account growth steady. Days quieter. Decisions deliberate. Fear loops neutralized. You are no longer a reactor. You are a steward. Every action flows from discipline, awareness, context. Anchor identity with the AID loop. Awareness, intervention, discipline, awareness, measurement and recognition. Intervention, pause, constraint, environment tweak. Discipline, rehearsal, review, identity narration. Repeat daily. Small loops compound. Weeks, months. Trader emerges from fear-driven reflex into deliberate precision. Daily ritual. Start session with 90-second check, sleep, behavioral KPI. One risk not to take. End session with 90-second reflection. Record emotional observation. Log KPI. Set one micro adjustment for next session. Rituals anchor the AID loop in lived experience, deeper than conscious willpower. Language matters. Replace "I shouldn't have done that" with "I noticed I did that." Replace "market cheated me" with "my behavior reduced my edge." Words shift mind from blame to curiosity. Curiosity drives learning. Blame drives repetition. Small change in phrasing transforms perception, strengthens execution. Practical checklist immediately. 5-second pause before execution. Track one behavioral KPI today. Implement one constraint for low-energy hours. Schedule 15-minute weekly micro-review with AI logs. Name identity sentence. Repeat at session start. I am a disciplined steward of my edge. Say it aloud. Internalize it. Expect failure. Missed pauses. Edited stops. Fatigue. Imperfect sessions. That's data, not destiny. Difference between success and failure. Using failure to update system versus letting failure justify more errors. Recovery is part of the loop. Ritualized recovery. Log event. Step away 5 minutes. Review KPI. Enact one micro rule next session. Errors stop metastasizing into identity. Identity is patterns of small, embodied acts. 5-second pause becomes reflex. Dashboard instructs, not shames. AI mirrors, nudges, teaches. Behavioral scaffolds replace reactive instinct. Micro-interventions compound. Fear impulses convert to deliberate precision. Decisions sharpen. Edges maintained. Final principle. Design for when you are not at your best. Fatigue, stress, distractions, low sleep. Anticipate. Build micro-friction, environmental cues, ritualized loops. Systems save you when willpower fails. At your worst, scaffolds act. At your best, scaffolds amplify. And the single sentence to carry forward: design for when you're not at your best. Every pause, KPI. Micro-intervention, ritual compounds. Fearful impulses, rehearsed deliberate action. Mistakes inform, not define. Decisions sharpen, accounts grow. Mindset stabilizes, performance evolves. James and Sarah, once trapped in loops of fear, now navigate markets with calm, precision, control. Same trades, same charts, same market events. Outcomes changed because operator changed. Difference is internal, invisible to outsiders, monumental in effect. If you remember nothing else, systems beat willpower. Micro-interventions beat impulse. Awareness beats ignorance. Ritualized loops beat emotional reactivity. AI is mirror, scaffold, coach. Habits become identity. Fearful traders, precise, rational operators of their own minds. If you're ready to evolve your trading mind, stay here. This is your next step. Continue transforming.